any of the speakers. Courtney, if you've had your wish list and you could change 2 things in residential aged care right now, you've mentioned many of them. Grab a microphone, yeah, if you've got one. What 2 things would be at the top of your list?
Number 1 would be to allow that nurse-led vaccination. Unfortunately, the nurses are pressed for time. They've got so many things that they need to achieve. So to do that, they will need additional support. And as I mentioned, you know, we've got the great ACOP program, the pharmacies going in on site to help with a whole host of things, including a little bit about vaccination, mostly about medications and other things. But I think that funding a nurse-led vaccination position would be really important.
Excellent. Paul, do we need to shift funding allocation? Do we need to take money from other areas of health or other areas of vaccination and give them to old people?
Yes. There is a limited bucket, and I don't think they're going to increase the bucket, particularly for health. I mean, I've actually been pleasantly surprised. I was worried after COVID that, you know, having spent $10 billion buying our population times 10 in COVID vaccines, that they would decide that that was it for vaccination. We're now going to concentrate on the children in facilities under the age of 5 and old people, and improving their wages and so on. But, you know, the availability of Shingrix, the expansion of PCV21 to chronic liver disease and chronic lung disease shows that we're actually improving a situation that existed for about 10 years, which was a policy of cost containment. You know, you could have something if you replaced it with something else. And so I think that cost minimisation appears to be decreased, and I think we're getting more money. And certainly I think we just need to get better data and better focus so that we can make a case for improving vaccination of people.
Thanks. Is there anything about new versus old vaccines? Do new vaccines get more traction? Do old vaccines like measles and pertussis and diphtheria, are they sort of old hat and, you know, we want the latest new thing? Maybe you could start from a paediatric perspective there, Margie.
Yeah, I think this is a real issue, that we're always focusing on the new shiny thing rather than using the resources that we have. I made this point recently at a Bill Gates symposium that I was asked to sit on a panel with him, and they just keep talking about the new shiny vaccines. And, you know, we need to strengthen primary care.
Yeah, we've got a faulty microphone.
I think we'll just stick with this one. We need to really work all together, I think, across all these settings to use the resources and optimise delivery. And I must say I am hugely supportive of vaccination for adults and in aged care homes, and it's exciting to see you know, the strategy so clearly laid out. The problem is always advocacy for the resources for delivery. But I do think new vaccines get more traction, but I think we need to really optimise and use what we have.
And just before I move to questions from the floor, you did mention at the very end there, Courtney, social influencers. There was a question from the online about, you know, are they really important in changing public perception? Are they worth it? Are they underrated? Are we overrating influencers?
So at the end, that was more about the new work that we're doing? Is that?
Yeah, okay, well, so I'm talking about social influencers and vaccination rates, but the others two can answer if you don't want to.
It's interesting that the evidence really shows that using a pop star or a sporting star, you know, standing up with a Band-Aid on their arm will only take you so far. In general, the influencers who actually have some knowledge or some ability to talk about the vaccines are far more effective. So I think we're moving away, I hope, from that model where we just have someone there, you know, standing out front with a Band-Aid or at a vaccination session or on a social media post.
But should we fight fire with fire? Should we get people, you know, with a following of 5 million people to start talking positively about vaccination?
These are pretty average. I think that we've had real success in public health programs in the past by using people that relate to the target group. So I can think back, I can't remember her name, to the lady in the Northern Territory running cattle farms after her husband died, who became the face of mammography campaigns over 50 and really did great things to get women over 50 relating to her and understanding it. I remember Jan Rooney with 3 Band-Aids on her arm, pushing the HPV dose 3 campaign that worked. So there are times when we can use them if they are relatable to the target group that we're looking at, that I think does work. I think they actually have more capacity to do damage if they're against us than to actually help us take things up. The campaigns run by, wives of film stars against vaccines, by RFK Jr., who gets up, lies about what he's going to say to Congress so he gets through and then, does the exact opposite when he gets there. I mean, the number of people who believe him, believe Donald. I mean, Donald got up and talked about maybe if we drink bleach, we're going to, get rid of the COVID problem. And despite that, people listen to him when he says, we're changing the vaccine to toss out all of these current ones and say we don't need them anymore. So, I don't know why that's the case, but I think that, we've got to use other strategies rather than relying on, our own influences to overcome the misinformation, disinformation flowing out of organisations at the moment.
I couldn't agree more. We've got some questions from the floor. We'll start here.
Oh, thank you.
Nice and close to the microphone.
Yeah, a bit closer. My name's Rosemary Bullman and I've worked in the City of Stonington now for 20 years. I think, we're not only preparing the battle, but it's continued dynamic unfolding. And this is a question for you, Margie. You've been an inspiration for me. You said you've been in the field for 25 years. I think I recall you at the Children's when I just come across the ditch from New Zealand to work, and I'm very excited about what's happening in the Pacific Islands, and I think we need to do a lot more work for our Indonesian and Filipino brothers and sisters and healthcare workers over there. But just in relation to the measles vaccine and how the burden of that disease has led to some funding being put into so nurse immunisers can be giving the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine in a travel context for babies over 6 months or family are going overseas. I'm just wondering about the stats in that or any strategies for that funding to continue, because we've been able to give a lot and we're very, very excited that we have been able to give that vaccine in that context, and then just another avenue for education that the parents have to come back for that 12-month one unless they've had it in 11
Thanks very
months.
much, Margie.
Yeah, thank you, Margie.
No, thank you. That is an excellent strategy. I mean, in my BCG vaccine clinic that I do once a month, every single baby that comes in for BCG under 1 gets an early MMR if they're travelling in the region between 6 to 11 months. And you're right, it's very important that we explain that that's an early additional dose. They still get the 12 and 18-month dose. I think governments really understand the value now of providing that free third MMR dose early. In fact, I actually advocated, a mother contacted me and we gave it to her baby at 5 months. I explained that there's no magic at 6 months. It's just, previous concerns about interference with maternal antibody or clinical trial data, but we can give it under 6 months. And in fact, Professor Kim Mulholland is advocating in some low and middle income country settings to give it at 4 months. So I think this protection is vital, but it's also clear to understand this is not a risk in the Australian community yet. This is a risk for babies travelling in our region where we are, and globally, where we are seeing huge numbers of measles cases, particularly India, Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines.
Next question.
I'd like to congratulate Courtney on what a wonderful program. It's Angela Newbound from South Australia. Absolutely fantastic project and really overdue and highly needed. And I really do hope that it does inform government and it does inform the Aged Care Quality and Care Commission to have a portal for all aged care facilities to be able to access the data sheets, the resources, the vaccine tracker, all of that because there is so much inconsistency across the aged care sector. And the engagement that I had with aged care homes in Adelaide, I almost called it the onion project because every layer that you peeled back was another barrier, another barrier. The vaccine program has become more and more and more complex. And most of the staff in aged care facilities are not clinical staff, a lot of carers, and those clinical staff may not have any vaccination experience in their lifetimes. And so I think it's absolutely imperative now to treat the vaccine program as a specialty area. And I think this is highly important to have funded nurse immuniser positions in the aged care sector, absolutely. But congratulations on your project.
Thank you.
Courtney, I think we all feel that. I'm surprised I haven't even heard about your project until now, and so was Paul. So a special round for Courtney, please. and her team, of course. Next question.
Hi, Sarah McGuinness from Melbourne. I'm an adult ID physician and also a member of ATAGI. I loved all of your presentations, so thank you so much. I think one thing that stood out to me was the availability of data on air needs to be available to everyone involved in conversations about immunisation, let alone the delivery of immunisation. So I think really that should be a call to make air data more readily available, because without knowing who isn't vaccinated, it's hard to find the people that we need to vaccinate. I guess my question was more about the way we message vaccination, and I think we tend to lead with vaccine adverse events and the morbidity and mortality of disease, but I think you've all highlighted the importance of other elements, particularly for older adults, being able to travel, being able to look after grandchildren, the potential benefits to future cardiovascular and neurological conditions. Should we be changing the way we message vaccination to be less focused on disease, risk and death and more on the positives?
Let's get a quick answer from everybody, starting with you, Margie.
Thanks, Sarah. Yes, I think the answer to that is definitely yes, and we saw that through COVID to really lift rates. It was kind of let's get back to the life that we knew and all of those positive benefits. So I think that is absolutely critical. I also think we need to remind people about the diseases. I think people have forgotten, and I think Paul made that point really well as well. And I agree. I don't think we need to focus so much on safety and effectiveness unless asked, and more on the benefits and the need for why.
Paul.
Look, I agree. My message to whoever's running IT.
Paul, come up here. You have a thing with microphones.
My message is that vaccination is part of healthy ageing, and so healthy ageing involves gentle stretch exercises, it involves a good diet, but one of the critical things for healthy ageing is you must get the vaccines that can protect you and maintain your functional capacity. And so really, while all the diseases are important and they all have significant impacts on quality of life afterwards, a model that says, here are the vaccines, and as your carer, I want to provide these because this is important for healthy ageing, I think is one that's going to work better than just trying to convince them that RSV is a new disease that they definitely have to get a vaccine, and maybe every 3 years or something as well.
Before we sit down, you mentioned shingles, you mentioned dementia before, which is the most feared condition of older people and now the main cause of death. Do you think that's going to get our vaccination rates up a bit, talking about preventing dementia when we have more data?
I hope so, because this really has been a game changer over the last 3 to 5 years. The capacity. Now, I admit these are not randomised controlled trials. There's some uncertainty around some of the data, but there is so much data now that says all of these vaccines at different levels, probably more shingles than some of the others, and we're not sure about how much of it relates specifically to reduction of inflammation and various other things. But what we do know is that this is one of the things you're worried about. Healthy ageing and vaccination is going to decrease your chance of getting dementia. And really, older people are so worried about that I think it is going to be a game changer if we can get primary care physicians and vaccine nurses and the rest of it talking about this to older persons.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Can I
Courtney.
just add something? Just with the recent work we've been doing in retirement villages, we've spoken with a lot of residents. And in this age group, this older age group, they're not actually, we have found, they're not hesitant. They're quite happy to have a vaccine. If the doctor, you tell me to do this, or my nurse, you tell me to do it, I will do it. But where the problem lies is that they don't actually know about, there's an awareness gap. They don't know about this, this new Shingrix. What do you mean I had Zostavax back in the day? I'm done. Well, they don't know about these things. So we have to address this awareness gap.
Another question from the floor.
Hi, my name is Rihanna, and I'm a registered nurse from Justice Health and Forensic Mental Health Network. So you guys talk about access and equity within the community. So my question is specifically, is there any plans and strategies for improving immunisation for all ages and maternal that are incarcerated, involuntary admitted to high secure mental health facilities? So these individuals with severe mental illness have very little trust already and have paranoia, delusions, and experience of significant trauma history. So that causes that hesitancy and refusal of immunisations. So is there any, but also there's also consideration of like preventing re-traumatization. So what are the specific plans for those incarcerated?
Incarcerated and mental health disorders, that's a very specific area. And does anybody feel they've got some knowledge there? Vaccination in incarcerated and people with mental health disorders?
Definitely. Well, we've done some work with homeless homeless adults and children, and many of them have mental health disorders. Incarcerated, not so much. But I think, again, Courtney really outlined a beautiful strategy and program for a specific target group of how you need to think of all the access and acceptance factors, including data quality, which she showed beautifully, to really drive a program. So I would say that for the incarcerated group, you need funding and a program similar to what Courtney's just outlined to be able to vaccinate them. I don't know that it's so much hesitancy. I think they probably need some support with needle phobia, which we do see with a lot of our young people who have mental health and behavioural disorders. So I think it would be a targeted program, funded program.
Maybe prison warders could become vaccinators. Paul?
I think there's a problem in corrections. Corrections health is usually not the best public health program. There is at times a view more towards punishment than rehabilitation amongst warders, and so I think there are challenges in who runs corrections health, whether it's the corrections service or the health department. Everything from hepatitis C screening through to treatment regimes, and that are difficult in that setting. I volunteer for Streetside Medics. I'll be there this evening at Burke Street running a clinic for homeless people, but I find vaccination in that setting very difficult. We get a nurse every so often who comes with flu and COVID, and again, they're not anti this, they're not hesitant, it's just a matter of offering it to them. But the challenge is, we run homeless clinics out of vans, and we do have no capacity for either cold chain or having a vaccine fridge in the van, and so actually providing a great vaccination service for homeless is very difficult, and I really don't have an answer for that yet. But gosh, if anybody needs respiratory vaccines, it's people sleeping rough on the street.
Absolutely. We've come to time, but we'll have 30 seconds for two questions, one from the floor and one online. 30 seconds to ask and answer.
Miriam Williams, Sorcan, South Australia. Great presentations this morning, particularly with your age over 65 years. It made me ponder and think, unfortunately and sadly, in a lot of our Aboriginal communities, we don't have a lot of population over the age of 65 years, and how important it is to get registered vaccines into Aboriginal communities early. RSV we have at the age of 60 in South Australia on the schedule. If we could have it from 50, we might see a lot more people around communities living to a lot older. Music to my ears to know that from 1st of July we'll have pneumococcal from 25 years of age for Aboriginal people. So I think it's really important that when these vaccines are registered, they become available to Aboriginal people as early as possible in our communities.
I'll take that as a comment, a very good one too. And the last question from the online audience, influenza, should that be added to the childhood immunisation schedule?
Well, I sort of consider that it is, to be honest. I mean, I recommend it to every child that comes into my clinic from 6 months, and it's critical. And again, influenza suffers continually from lack of awareness on the severity of the disease. And so, absolutely, it should 100% be on the schedule across the lifespan.
Although we did hear this morning that flu is not such a big problem as the other respiratory viruses for young people, didn't we?
We did, but I would get back to what I was asking Michael, and that's why actually we can't have a schedule that has influenza either at 6 months or 12 months, depending on when it's winter, instead of making that a separate discussion. Although it's funded, it's not part of your routine process when you come in and the nurse practitioner looks at the list on the board and says, okay, you don't need an oral one this time because you're 6 months, you've had those, here's what you're getting. I think what should be part of that is an influenza vaccine is part of what you're getting. So as well as being on the schedule and free, it actually is on the specific schedule that we give to everybody as well. I like Kit Talbot's approach. I mean, Kit Talbot's a vaccine specialist. She used to be on ACIP prior to RFK Jr. She's out of Nashville in Tennessee. She says, when I get a new diabetic, I don't say to them, do you feel like having insulin? She says it's part of the standard of care. When her vaccine arrives in July or August, she says to people who attend, you're really lucky, the vaccine's just arrived, I'll give it to you while you're here, not, how do you feel about flu vaccine? You know, do you think you should have it? Now, I know that's very paternalistic, but a lot of our immunisation program is paternalistic. I just horrified Margie, but apart from that...
I think we've actually...
Evidence is for presumptive communication. That's the correct evidence for that approach.
I think we've actually heard some fantastic knowledge from all three speakers and great questions from the floor, and we do need to stop, I'm afraid, but you can come up and ask individual questions personally. It's now lunchtime, but let's have a final round of applause to our three excellent speakers.